The water is my peace. It always has been. It's been my place to escape. Just here where I live now, it's become a dark place for me, and I actually
Hmm.
avoid it sometimes now. My fear is that when I'm in a very bad space mentally, struggling, overwhelmed, drowning, metaphorically drowning, maybe I'll literally drown. It scares me. It does.
Hey there, my name is Sean, and this is Suicide Noted. On this podcast, I talk with suicide attempt survivors and ideators so that we can hear their stories. Every year around the world, millions and millions of people try to take their own lives. We almost never talk about it. We certainly don't talk about it enough, not nearly enough. And when we do talk about it, when we engage, particularly with people in pain, we are not very good at it. Let's be honest. Most of us are really bad at it. That is a problem, a high-stakes problem. So one of my goals with this podcast is to have more conversations and hopefully better conversations with survivors, in large part to help more people in more places hopefully feel at least a little less shitty and a little less alone. Now, if you are an attempt survivor or ideator, however you define that, and you'd like to talk with me, please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com or suicidenoted@gmail.com. You can check the show notes, the podcast description, the website to learn more about this podcast, including our membership, making a tax-deductible donation, volunteering. Would love to get you involved, but of course, if all you do is listen to this podcast, even once in a while, that is by far more than enough. Finally, we are talking about suicide on this podcast. My guest and I do not hold back, so please take that into account before you listen or as you listen. But I do hope you listen because there is so much to learn. Today, I am talking with Chelle. Chelle lives on the shore, and I should add, it's been many months since this conversation took place. So after Chelle and I say goodbye, stick around. She's got a sort of mini update for you on where she is and how she's been over the last many months. And of course, Chelle is a suicide attempt survivor. Hey, Chelle.
How are you? Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Well, you just asked me that.
It's because I'm a little nervous.
Okay, a little nervous. I get it. So we should tell the audience that this is not our first conversation. We talked a few months back, and you decided you didn't want that conversation to be aired, right?
I think that I was not ready to be honest with myself. So how could I be honest with you? And I'd be doing any listeners a disservice by not being honest about how I am feeling. And it was after the fact that I realized, things are worse than I let off to you and worse than I wanted to admit. So I wanted to wait until I kind of got a grasp on all of that so that I could really talk about it. I'm very good at talking with other people about their problems, helping them. I'm going to school to be a clinical social worker right now. I'm a volunteer for a DV agency for crisis text line. I'm very good at talking to people about their problems, but I have a very hard time talking about myself. So
Right. Yeah, that resonates. So you're in the Great Lakes
I'm in
and
a little lake town. Yeah. Nice little
Mhm.
lake town here.
Midwest. Super great.
Hmm.
Name is Chelle.
Yep. That's my nickname.
And where are you right now? Are you in your home?
Yeah, my dogs just got picked up. I share custody with my ex-husband. So they just got picked up and I'm in my living room with the window in the background.
Nice. Here's a weird question. Not that weird. Don't worry. I'm not like that weird.
I'm weird, so go ahead, lay it on me.
Do you remember why you first looked for a podcast or something with the word suicide in it?
Yeah, because I was having suicidal thoughts and I wanted to understand why I was, and I also just didn't want to feel so crazy. I was curious and I'm someone that has to understand things. So whether I'm going through it or it's something I've been through, I just have to understand. Even if I never can understand, I want to try to find out. And that's how I found you on Spotify. And it was just genuine people talking. It wasn't any therapy related things. It wasn't, purchase this from me. It was literally just real conversations. And I've been listening ever since. I listened to every episode.
Oh, I'm going to try to sell you something. Don't worry. I'm ready to up level this shit to some high-end coaching program. Do you
Yeah.
still listen to the podcast? Do you get any value from those conversations anymore?
Oh, yeah. I listen to the podcast all the time.
You do.
Usually when I'm in a dark place and feeling lonely, I'm usually okay when my dogs are here with me. It's when they're gone that I tend to struggle a little more, and get in my head. I am actually titrating off an SSRI right now because I've been pill shamed for so long against my
Mm.
therapist's recommendation, but my problem is with these SSRIs, I tend to couch lock.
Hang on, Chelle. You're using all kinds of interesting terminology that I'm not familiar with. I think I understand the idea of pill shaming, but I have no idea what couch locking is.
Where you're just stuck on the couch.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, you know how, like, if you're, a weed smoker, you smoke some weed and you're couch locked, it's kinda like that, but you're just in your head with depressive thoughts. With me, I've always struggled with high anxiety, and the SSRI took care of the anxiety, but it made my depression worse, in my opinion. So, I need a little anxiety in my life because if not, I'm just sitting here thinking, and then those thoughts get really dark when you're sitting here alone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty easy to find anxiety, though, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, you don't even have
Look,
to find it, sometimes it's just
right,
right there.
right. So if you need a little anxiety, which is an interesting way of framing it, you don't have to look too far.
Yeah, I've been doing a little self-reflection with that, and I need a little anxiety, in my life, otherwise, I'm just too deep into my head, and I'm
Man,
a few weeks down on that. I've just cut it in half, and I'm still taking a sleeping pill to help me with my PTSD, which we can get into, but,
we will if you want.
yeah, of course, so my dark thoughts haven't been as bad the last few weeks, I've noticed, but the anxiety has risen, which is
Yeah,
getting me off the couch because it's making me move.
right. When you
So,
say dark, dark thoughts, is that sometimes like dark slash suicidal?
yeah. Yeah.
Fascinating that people are suicidal and planning their lives. Maybe planning is a strong word, but sometimes people are planning their deaths and planning their lives.
It's interesting and scary at the same time. Like, I get into these moments where sometimes the past comes into my head, pain from the past, and you have all this pain and you don't know where to put it. For me, I just kind of impulsively get into that dark space out of nowhere.
Mhm.
But then on my good days, it's like I want to take that pain and use it to help other people, which is why I turned away from going to law school into social work. Yeah, recently over the last few years. And so yeah, it's kinda hard. It's like you have these thoughts, and then on the other end of it, you wanna help other people who are having the same thoughts. It's like, how do you get there, though, if you're still feeling those things?
Yeah. You start a podcast on suicide. That's what you do. How many suicide attempts do you have?
I don't have any specific suicide attempts. However, since we last spoke, I don't remember much of my childhood. There's a lot of trauma.
Mhm.
Over the last few months, a memory came to my head of something that I did when I was 15 or 16. I remember I went into the medicine cabinet at my house. Things were very volatile growing up with my parents and our family. Anyway, looking back, it would have never worked anyway. But I remember I took a bottle of Tylenol and I just started taking pills, and I lost count after 7. I think maybe I got up to like 11 pills. Looking back, I remember just thinking, and I can't believe I didn't remember this until just recently, the last few months, just wanting to see what it would do. I didn't do anything. That's the only time I've ever done something like that. There was something recent that happened that's gonna be very hard for me to talk about, but I think I need to.
Let me ask you a few things about when you were a teenager. When you say you were just wanting to know what they would do,
I don't know what that means.
so you're in the category of people, and I'm sure we'll get more into this with some stuff that has happened more recently, where it's like near suicide attempt,
Yeah, yeah,
not the
nothing that
actual.
was ever intentional, nothing that I was planning for anything. I've never planned to end my life. I've never
Mhm.
intended, I've never done anything like that, but I have had the thoughts and I've gotten near. If I was in an even darker space, it's a possibility that would have happened. It starts somewhere, right?
15, 16, difficult time in your family.
Everything. I mean, we were very poor growing up. We moved a lot. We moved every couple of years, and I was bullied a lot in school. I was bullied a lot, especially in junior high. On top of that, I don't feel like my mother really liked me very much. My dad screamed a lot. He went to anger management and never yelled at us again, and then it flipped, and my mom became the bully, and she was
Mm.
never very nice growing up. But anyway, we moved a lot. I ended up gaining weight when I was a teenager, so I got picked on a lot. And then I remember going to the doctor with my parents. I remember getting weighed and my dad mouthing my weight back to me like he was ashamed.
I bet you remember
And
that number.
I do. I do remember that number. It was 165. We had moved from the city up to the country and I had a hard time making friends. And after that, I got a gym membership. My mom was supposed to go to the gym with me. She went one time. And then I remember I ended up every day I was doing 200 sit-ups a day, and I was eating nothing but saltine crackers, and I dropped 20 pounds instantly. Now with that, you go into your teen years, 15, 16, you lose weight, you're a decent looking person, make friends, right? The eating disorder, it turned into bulimia. It turned into diet pills. It turned into me making it a game of how long I could go without eating. I have 2 days without eating. And then that lasted until my early 20s. I
Mm.
think I did it because I just felt like it was one thing I had control over.
Yeah,
And I don't talk to a whole lot of people about that. Not a lot of people know about that.
why is
Um,
that?
I don't know. I don't know.
So many people skewing towards women, I'm sure, young women, but nonetheless that are in that space. No doubt, so many.
And
So
some die
other
from it and some don't come out of it. But it was quite a long time that I was in that, and it got me into a lot of trouble. So, I mean, I grew up watching the Tyra Banks modeling show, the Janice Dickinson modeling agency, these women going on there that were perfect 10s, 20s that were being told they were fat. I grew up with that, I'm in my late
Mhm.
30s, so early 2000s, I grew up watching all that and as a
Mhm.
teenager, and you get picked on when you're overweight, especially if you're a new student in a school and people don't know you. And I was bullied so bad. I remember I ended up skipping school one day. I think I was in ninth grade, 14, or I think I was 15, and I went and hid in the shed in our backyard. Okay. Of course, the school was called my parents. They're like, she went to school. They called the police. So here I'm hiding in a shed in my parents' backyard, and the police are walking around, and I finally come out. And I remember bawling to my mom, please don't make me go back to school. They're so mean. 8th or ninth grade, and then I ended up being homeschooled for a couple of years, and then when I went back to
Mm.
school, we moved again. We moved all the time, so I've learned to adapt, and I can read people's emotions and how I'm just very sensitive to that stuff. So I learned how to adapt to my environment, but
Yeah.
when I went back to school, it was my junior or senior year of high school, I went back to school in person, and it changed, everything changed. I was popular, I was thin, I was pretty, but with that comes other problems.
What are your late teens, early 20s? I know you're still your words saying, you have an eating disorder, right? Can we use that term?
Yeah, oh yeah, it was full on bulimia. Yeah, and
Okay.
starvation. I was pretty smart. I wanted my dream was to be the next Christiane Amanpour. I wanted to be a war correspondent. I had a boyfriend who was in Iraq at the time. I had dated a boy who was in Iraq after we broke up. We're still friends to this day. I come from a military background family, so veterans are very close to my heart, and how they're treated
Mm.
is bullshit. Anyway, so I wanted to be the next Christiane Amanpour. I wanted to be a war correspondent, a journalist, a photojournalist. I wanted to go overseas. I got accepted into Columbia College in Chicago, which your junior year there, you could internship for you could compete for an internship at CNN back in the day. Okay, so I wanted to go, and I got a scholarship for my tuition. I had to pay room and board. Now, looking back, I hate myself for it. I'm very angry at myself for it because my school counselors, my parents, no one told me about student loans, any of that stuff. My mom, I just feel like she played mental games with me. She said, "I'll just pay for the room and board. You're good." I had $30,000 basically of tuition paid. I just had to pay like 6 grand for room and board. It could be, the numbers could be completely off. It's just how I remember it. Last minute, she backs out. So then we decide, okay, I'm going to go to the local university, do journalism there, go to do my orientation. She backs out of that.
So now it's too late to get the money you could have applied for, even if you knew about the loans.
I didn't even know what student loans were. I didn't know, we were poor, so I had a pretty much I could have probably applied for more scholarships and gotten full ride because we were so poor. I mean, I was wearing hand-me-downs. Okay, that's how
Yeah.
I didn't get a senior yearbook. I didn't get senior pictures. That's how poor we were.
In a school with 41 people, so it's probably kind of rural.
Yeah, very
Even
rural.
in the 2000s, and it may apply today, is there an explicit or perhaps implicit understanding that as a young lady, go ahead and graduate, find yourself a guy, just live that life?
Pretty much. I mean, it's not how I saw it for myself.
Yeah.
I told myself I'll never end up like my parents, like my family. I'm a first generation college student right now, in my
Mhm.
late 30s. After that fell through for me, I kind of gave up, went straight to work. I had that drive, but I didn't have the opportunity, and I was with a guy and for 4 years through from age of 17 to 21, and he had an anger problem. I remember right before my senior prom, we left school early to go get ready for a party at his house. Got into an accident. Someone hit us, and I almost died. I had 4 broken ribs, collapsed lung.
Mm.
So when I was released from the hospital, I went and stayed with him because I didn't wanna be with my parents. The very next day after I got released, I'm still healing. I've been in the hospital for 2 weeks, and he asked me a question about something, and he didn't like the answer I gave him. We were in the laundry room, and he shoved me to the ground with broken ribs. To say that is to basically say that's kind of how kind of relationship issues I dealt with, and it lowered my self-worth over the years, and it just made me feel like I was worthless. It made
Mm.
me feel like, I wasn't lovable when that's all I really wanted. I just wanted love, and I think it's a lot of problem with a lot of people who end up in situations that I'm in, mentally, where you just feel like you're trying to prove yourself, and it's just never good enough, and then you get to
Mhm.
a breaking point eventually when you're forced to face your past, and that's where I've been the last couple years
Mm.
now.
So you're dealing with bulimia and you're dealing with abuse.
Yeah, and looking back, I didn't think it was abuse until I started therapy a couple years ago. Now all of this stuff is coming back up.
You
Yeah.
said something, and I'm not a therapist or a counselor, but I'm a guy and
Yeah.
try to listen and hear things and my
Oh,
own
I appreciate it.
experiences. Yeah, yeah. But you said something very interesting. It's never enough. We can choose that guy, but we can make him a sort of composite of people in a sense. It will never be enough. It won't matter how nice you are, how funny you are, how obedient you are, how smart you are, how good in bed you are, anything. That's the whole point.
Yeah, and you don't realize it but
You
in the
don't
moment. I had my group of friends or whatever, but, you're in a small community, and when you're in a relationship like that, you make them kind of like your whole world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not gonna probably go announcing to your friends or the community that this guy shoved you down and hurt you.
Yeah, and that's not the only time he did something. I remember that he was having a party at his house. I think this was after high school. I just graduated. It was winter time. He was having a party. We were drinking. We got into an argument. He threw me into a snow pile in front of all of our friends. Nobody
Mm.
said anything. Nobody did anything, and that pisses me off.
So when you're in your late teens, early 20s, this thing doesn't happen for essentially what you're sharing as you said as your dream to be a journalist. At any point during that time, does the idea of suicide enter your mind?
Not at that time, no. Looking back, I was definitely depressed.
Mm-hmm.
It was just masked with drama. In my relationship, drinking, partying, like you do when you're a kid and you have no direction for your life, and
Mm-hmm.
work. Looking back, I put myself into some bad situations because I didn't like myself. That to me, that's depression. And to me, that's depression. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know it then, but I know it now as I've
Yeah.
gotten older and learned things
Yeah.
about myself. I remember when I was at a party when I was 16, it was an open house for a football player, and I got really, really drunk. I had a boyfriend at the time, just a teenage boyfriend, and I got really, really drunk, and one of the parents put me into, one of the main rooms and to sleep it off because I was like, "Don't call my parents. Please do not call my parents," because my mom would have, killed me, and so they said, "Fine," and then I remember waking up halfway in the middle of the night. One of the guys at the party was trying to assault me.
Mm.
And then a parent walked in and just shooed him away. And that's another situation where it's like, not good enough, and, not worth, you're just shooing this guy away like he's not doing any just stop being a bad boy, slap on the wrist. Just little things like that. So it's like you don't put yourself into those situations unless you're in a lot of pain or you're really lost in life. Yeah, that's where I was back then. And then I got into another relationship after that one that was just whatever. And then I started dating my ex-husband. So and then
How old were you when you married him?
I was 24 when I started dating him. We were friends for several years before we dated, which is what's most shitty about it. And then we got married when I was 30.
Okay. So that's about less than 10 years ago. Obviously, you said he's your ex-husband, so duh, that didn't work out.
Because I loved him very much, but he did a lot of bad things to me throughout our relationship, which until I started therapy a couple years ago, I didn't realize it was abusive. I just knew how it made me feel and how it made me want to escape. So when we were dating, there was a time when we had gone to a party. We were on the expressway coming home in my car, got into an argument, and he tried to pull over in the car in the middle of the night and throw me out of my car. There was another time after a wedding we went to, and this is early on in our relationship, and I'll just give you a couple examples of a lot of things.
Mhm.
A friend of mine looked at him wrong at a wedding, and he punched the windshield out in our car with me sitting in it. Again, didn't realize it was abusive. He just had his own demons that he was dealing with. So I remember I became a runner. After we got married, I got really depressed and I started drinking a lot. And I saw a Couch to 5K training program, and I started running. I became really good at it, put all into it, ended up running a half marathon. And I remember on a run a few years ago, I was looking up at the sky and I just remember thinking, well, if I just dropped dead right now, that'd be great. Be a great way to go. And that's when the ideating started for me.
Once that starts,
It becomes a way to cope.
yeah, like it doesn't easily go back into the.
It's always there now.
Has it always remained?
It got worse after my dad died
And when was that?
in 2023 or
Eh,
2022. I'm sorry. Just a few months before I asked for the divorce. This all happened real quick.
So you have been divorced now for about.
Just one year.
Let's see, wait.
So the divorce took about a year, took my time.
Okay, so you stuck it out for a little while.
And that's my downfall, John. I see the good in people, not the bad. And it has cost me a lot throughout my life because I tend to only see the good and I justify people's actions and tend to blame
Mm.
myself. I think it's what's gotten me to the point that I've gotten to.
That's an interesting trade-off, right? I'm not going to see the good in people if you have this sort of magic potion, because that will be better for me. Some of these problems wouldn't have happened. To go through life seeing the not good in people is also a slippery slope. Kind of can't win.
You can't win no matter which way you look at it. I think there's like a fine line there, but I tend to go over that line and just, I'm a people pleaser. My therapist told me I was codependent, which he's right, But yeah, it wasn't until I started therapy after my dad died to deal with my dad's death that I realized I was in an abusive relationship. And then it was like the floodgates opened. I started shaking, like emotional abuse. That's what this is. It's emotional abuse. But he's never hit me. That's why I said to my therapist, he's never hit me. And he told me it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's better if they do. Sometimes you feel better if they do hit you because it can justify why you're feeling the way you're feeling.
You said earlier when you were originally talking about your 16-year-old self, and you said something about there was something more recent.
This is something I've only told one person who has had these thoughts, who has lost people to suicide. So this is very hard for me to talk about this, but I want to. This is why I'm here. I want people to understand that even if you haven't attempted, it's just one split decision where you could. I think that's, you have those feelings and then you get to this point. After my dad died, after my marriage dissolved, I started ideating a lot. I tend to go sit by the water, which was always my place to go sit under this bridge. When my parents would fight a lot, I would go there as a kid, and it just became my place to go even throughout life as an adult, just my place to escape. In the recent couple years, it's become my place to ideate. And I think the antidepressants had a lot to do with exasperating those feelings.
Hmm.
So I switched antidepressants, I went on to a different one, and it made a huge difference because I was super numb on this last one. It helped me get through my divorce, but it made me extremely, like, having dark suicidal thoughts. So I switched over to a different one, and then I got upped on it, and that started the problems again, I think. So anyway, I've been sitting by the water a lot, imagining just going under the water, imagine jumping off a bridge, and I tend to get this way when I feel trapped. Overwhelmed from school, overwhelmed from my demanding job, overwhelmed from trying to keep things cohesive between me and my ex, which has been fine with the dogs, my volunteer work, just everything. And then when you're on an antidepressant, that's making you feel like couch locked and you get behind on everything. Then you start to feel overwhelmed and like you're drowning. And I've had thoughts of, hitting an overpass or whatever. Nothing that I would ever do because I would never want to hurt people that I love. So that's why I keep telling myself I would never want to hurt the people I love because that's what I do. I'm a people pleaser.
Right. So when was the last time you came close?
I'm not going to say when it happened, but it was more recent. I had just dropped my dogs off for their week. We're exploring in therapy PMDD. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a female thing. It's a premenstrual, basically where your hormones get all whacked. Well, apparently it can cause a lot of women to feel suicidal during a certain time of their cycle. So I was dealing with that as well as leaving my dogs and then just behind in school, behind on work. So I went and sat down by the water where I've been sitting for a couple of years ideating. And I literally in my head just sat there for an hour, just picturing myself how I was doing it, going up, and then thinking, well, I've heard these stories where people jump off a bridge, then they might not die or they die a painful death. Okay, so I can bring out my tool. So I'm just imagining this, okay? And then I go home and then I feel better. You just feel like relief. Okay. I'm not going to do it, but it just gives you that relief, that release. It's been my coping mechanism. So, but I go home and I cross the line. I unloaded my tool, so I would never hurt myself. But I unloaded it, but then I place it to my temple just to see how it would feel.
Hold up. I'm not understanding. What's the tool?
My firearm.
Why do you say tool?
Because I've always been afraid of firearms my entire life, and I worked very hard over the last 5 years to become comfortable. I went through a lot of training. I have my certification. I've never disrespected it. So I
Mm-hmm.
call it my tool because it's my protection. As a single woman, it's my and I've
Mm.
never disrespected it. And I did that day,
Put it up to your
and
temple.
just to see how it would feel,
Nobody's around?
but he was around.
How'd it feel?
I don't remember how it felt, I just remember putting it down, and then I went into an instant panic attack. Like, this was bad. This was not okay. Called
Mm,
my neighbor, who has been through some similar things in the past. Didn't tell him what happened, but I just said, "Hey, I need you to take some keys and hold them for me for a while." I locked it up. He said, "Fine." I gave him the keys the next morning. Didn't sleep that night, gave him the keys the next morning. He had them for a while until I felt better mentally. So I have a friend I've been friends with for a very long time. He's pretty much one of the only ones that I've been able to talk to about the dark stuff. You know, out in therapy I can too. My therapist is great. So I told him about it. I'm like, I need to talk. And it was a few days later. I'm like, I need to tell someone about this. I don't want to tell my therapist because I'm worried, I crossed the line and it might cause problems. And so I told him, and he said, "Well, what antidepressant are you on?" Instantly blaming the medication for how I was feeling. And
mm,
it felt so invalidating.
mm,
And I got very upset, and I'm like, "You're basically telling me that I felt the way I did because of pills, not because of the pain that I'm in." And I waited a day to tell him because I don't wanna hurt his feelings.
mhm,
And I told him, "I'll never tell you anything personal again about that." It's like I felt these feelings before I started an antidepressant. I felt these feelings before my divorce. I felt these feelings before all of this stuff. I've only been on the antidepressant for a year and a half. So to say that was caused by the pills, no,
mhm,
it's caused by an insane amount of pain that I can't seem to get a control over. I just can't. So yeah, and that's why I started coming off. I cut my antidepressant in half the very next day before telling my doctor, before telling my therapist. So they know now, but just makes you feel weak. You get pill shamed at work. When you talk to someone about it, you get pill shamed by friends, pill shamed by everybody, and I just kind of got sick of it, and
mhm.
that was my last straw. So
I'm not trying to get weird or graphic. But I just think it matters for the conversation and for people hearing this. I'm going to use your words. Sorry. How long is the tool pressed up against your temple? More or less.
maybe 10 seconds.
Do you have any idea? Can you recall what you're thinking or feeling?
I wasn't thinking or feeling anything in that moment,
Numb.
and that's what scares me.
Yeah.
On the
Mhm.
other end of that, I chose to keep myself safe after I did that. So I try and think of that. The scary
Sure.
thing for me is the impulsivity of how I behave when I'm in an immense amount of pain and when I'm feeling trapped. And I know there's many people out there who are just the same way.
Yeah. When was the last time you felt that way?
Couple weeks ago. It's a couple times a month. It's when I'm very overwhelmed at work or with school, and then just everything kind of adds up, and then you just feel like you're not good enough, and you feel weak, and you feel like there's no way out. You just feel like you're drowning in life. And then you just feel weak because other people can do this and they thrive. What's wrong with me?
Mm,
Like, what the fuck is wrong with me that I cannot handle? It's just a lifetime of buildup and avoidance and not confronting life, just kind of going through the motions. I just feel like my life has not been my life. It's been a life lived for others. And I think it's what's brought me to a lot of this. And then my dad got sick and I ended up being the POA. And I had to watch him die, and I had to be the one to call out the family to tell them that he wasn't gonna make it. I'm the one that had to sign off on everything, and that was very hard on me because my mom's not in my life anymore, and his fiancée treated me like shit. She tried to marry him in the hospital before he got vented, we found out. And then she just fought me the whole way. I watched him off the vent. They don't it's not like what they tell you in the movies when people die. Before they take them off the vent, you and your family get together and you go and you say goodbyes, and then they take him off the vent, and that's when you can go back in if you want. Well, I decided to go back in after he had the vent come off. I wasn't prepared for what I saw because he'd been vented for 2 weeks. He had cancer and we didn't find out till the day before he died. And I remember collapsing as soon as I saw him. And we had this amazing male nurse. Just, I feel like male nurses are so kind. They're amazing male nurses. Every male nurse I've ever dealt with is just so genuinely kind. No offense to female nurses. I love you too. But male nurses, man, they have something in them. And I collapsed and he grabbed me. And apparently my ex-husband tried to also grab me, and I pushed him away, but allowed the male nurse to pick me up and put me in a chair. And he threw that back in my face after I had my first breakdown a month later, telling me how much it hurt his feelings. And that stuck with me. But then the nightmares started. So I am on a sleeping pill right now. I have PTSD, anxiety, and depression. I've been
mhm.
diagnosed. So I started having nightmares and flashbacks of my dad's death. And I think that contributed a lot to my mental health issues, the ideating. And I started drinking very heavily after he died. I felt like I
Mm.
was slowly suiciding myself.
Yeah. Well, unaliving yourself, Shell.
Yeah. Yes.
No, no, let's not say death or suicide. Let's just tiptoe around it.
No, truthfully, like suicide and killing yourself,
Yeah, that's what it is.
it is, and I think it's part of the problem is that people try to be delicate about it, and it's not anything to be delicate about. People need to know, and that's why I wanna talk, even though this is hard for me. I want to be a part of the change. If I wanna be a social worker and help people dealing with crisis and dealing with suicidal thoughts, that's what I wanna do. I wanna help people who are in crisis. If I keep quiet about what I'm going through, my mental health, how is that helping?
Do you think everybody who's suicidal is in crisis? It's
I don't
like
know how to answer that. I think it's different for everybody. I feel
so
like everyone should have the right to feel the way they feel and to make the decisions they wanna make for their own bodies.
now you as a social worker,
Mhm.
and there are certain expectations, even laws,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
that's
Ethics.
probably a space in which you can't say that, or at least not say it quite in that way.
As I've learned in my program, you have to be aware of your own values and beliefs and ethics and biases, and you have to follow the ethics. So you have to follow the code of ethics. We're bound. Even as a student, I'm bound. So in my practice, I will do my best with the tools that I have, following the laws I need to follow to help people, but it's not going to change. I mean, it might down the road, but I don't think it would change how I feel about people who are in that much pain
Yeah.
and telling them whether they have the right. Same with someone who's terminal, right? Terminal cancer. You're telling them they have to sit there and suffer to death. Well,
Mm.
mentally, someone's in mental pain, aren't they suffering enough too? I mean, isn't that the same thing? They're suffering.
A little harder to, and I hate this word, but measure, right? Cancer's cancer. Hard to do that with the emotional stuff, at least in 2025. That technology might change that one day. When you're a social worker, because you've shared with me that you don't talk about yourself a lot, certainly not this stuff. Do you imagine sharing stuff with your clients about yourself?
Absolutely, in a way that is helping the client. So my therapist, he's a clinical social worker. He will share things with me to help me understand and not feel alone.
Sure.
And that kinda breaks the stigma, and it kinda makes you more trusting and, like, you can relate to me, right? So but we have to ma that's a fine line too, you have to make sure you're not making it about you. Someone who's been through these things, I feel like they have a big one up on people who don't understand going into this field, and I think we need more people like
Mm.
that.
When do you finish and start that work?
Well, I have another year of my bachelor's, and then I have a 10-month of my master's after that, and then I'll be able to get my limited license. For now, I am volunteering for a domestic violence agency, and I'll be doing my field placement through them, doing basically being a crisis intervention advocate for human trafficking and domestic violence survivors. And then I'm also
Whoa.
dabbling in the crisis text line a little bit. So yeah, I'm doing the things, right?
I'm passively suicidal. I've been in 2 hospitals, one voluntarily, one we're not sure, kind of voluntarily, kinda not. Both were relatively short stays. They were not the right place for me. I'm drinking, unmedicated, other than a sleep medication. This is not made up, by the way. Sometimes I don't wanna be alive, and sometimes, like in this moment, I very much do wanna be alive. Mostly, I don't think that my future will be good. So for me right now, it's thinking about, can I be okay with that? And there's no guarantees. It might be wonderful. But, you live for a couple of decades in a certain way. It's a reasonable thing to think, maybe it won't get better. You're my social worker. You got to ask those questions. What's question number one?
The questions you have to ask are, have you attempted to harm yourself, or have you had any thoughts of harming yourself, including today, in the last couple
Yeah.
days?
All right. Have you had thoughts about it? Well, sure. But not like I'm gonna do anything. And, oh, by the way, I know exactly what's gonna happen if I answer all these yes.
No.
So, doesn't that change my answer? So now I have a choice to be in some cases, if it did apply, completely honest, or to not be honest, mainly because if I'm completely honest, most of the time, probably most places in the world, but let's limit it to the United States, chances are if I say yes to all of those, I'm gonna be involuntarily committed to a place where more times than not, I wouldn't say most of the time, but probably more times than not, is not helpful, can make things worse. For some people, it's rather traumatic. And I have a long list of what that means. I don't need to get into it because you've heard the podcast. Sean talks about this. When you were asking me about if I have suicidal thoughts, part of it is that I don't have a lot of money. Now I'm going to get billed $12,000. Why the fuck would I say yes to those questions?
You wouldn't,
You wouldn't.
because the system's broken.
So why would you ask them? Not you. Why are they being asked?
I feel like it's protective measures for the organization. I think it's what it comes down to, because if you don't ask those questions and then someone God forbid, does something, does that come back on the organization? That's where
Oh.
my problem is though with text line is that you're required to ask those questions within a certain amount of time and it doesn't feel authentic or genuine. And then in me as a personally, I know not to say I don't have intent. They want to know if you have the means, the
Right. Method, means, plan.
intent.
Imminent risk, 48 hours, 72 hours, it varies. It's a service
Oh,
for
it's
people
amazing.
who want to chat with somebody and just like
Yeah.
decompress a little bit and get some resources, but it's not for everybody.
The experiences I've had with it so far have been great, but I've heard some not so good experiences where people have been called.
I think about the damage that's being done when people are honest, they get involuntary committed. And if it happens to be a really negative experience, talk about a ripple effect. Because not
Yeah.
only is that person unlikely to be so honest again, but here's the other thing. Probably most people in their life, and some people don't have anybody, but some people do, they're going to tell those people. Should those people come to them, don't be honest. Do whatever you can to stay out of the hospital. That's a ripple effect. And
You're
that's
not
hard
getting
to
help.
know because those are conversations that someone's having in a cafe, that they're texting. Like you don't know those are happening, but they're happening all the time. Those,
Talk about it, but don't be 100% transparent about it is what it comes down to, is what you feel like you're expected to be. I've noticed from my own personal sharing with I haven't shared like the deep stuff like I'm sharing here, but I noticed when I've shared some struggles I've gone through with my own friends, a lot of them feel the exact same way. They don't seek help. I feel like maybe they'd be afraid to.
I know I'm occupying a kind of, in a way, a kind of unique space. How would you feel, whether I explicitly stated it or it was just kind of understood, you want to talk about things? And I know you're not including every single nugget of your life here, but you're being very open. And I said, you know what, Chelle? That's a little too much. I mean, talk about it, but don't be totally honest. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
No, I think it comes down to just giving people a voice to talk without fear of any repercussions of it. I think for a lot of people, they just need to be heard and seen
Mhm.
and to know that their pain is normal and it's okay to feel these feelings based on what they've been through and to find better solutions to fix it, not throwing them into a hospital for short-term care and then throwing them out in the street with no long-term resources. Or
But
going to
what?
therapy and talking about this and being honest with your therapist about it and then having them institutionalize you or like, that's why I wanna go into this because if someone comes to me feeling this way, I'm not gonna be the one to freak out over it and wanna worry about protecting myself. I'm gonna be wanting to do what I can to make sure that they can
Yeah.
get their words out and then help them come up with a plan for safety not only, but also help them work through the trauma and the pain and see if I can do anything to help make their lives better.
That actually will help them. If you want prevention, that's actually
Yeah.
a way to prevent. By the way, if you're a social worker, a therapist, counselor, and you freak out when someone says stuff like this, you need to quit your job today, right now. You should not be employed in that position, period.
Also, if you're someone who's been through these things or currently going through these things, look into maybe becoming a part of that, whether it's as a social worker, a psychologist, even just a
Mhm.
peer counselor. Be a part of the positivity where people can actually talk to you. Because if people know that you don't have to share, everything you've gone through, but if people know that you understand, that makes a huge difference. And if you don't freak out when they bring
Yeah,
up the S word, I mean, it's a serious thing and people don't know how to handle it. But if you're a professional, you should learn how to handle it. And that's my opinion.
mine too. If the mailman freaks out, okay, the person's role is to mostly deliver mail, very important function.
Very.
But if she, he, they doesn't really get it, okay. But if you're somebody who's in part of your role is to have these kinds of conversations and you can't do it, please go apply right now to the United States Post Office. You got good benefits, at least for now. That could change. That's a whole political thing, and we're not here to talk
Mhm.
about that necessarily. Get out of that fucking job because you're doing damage.
Oh, yeah. You wanna know why I think it really matters? Is because maybe if you talk to people and they're able to get their voice out before it gets to that point, they
Yeah.
don't have to come back a year later. Maybe they had that option to get their voice out and feel heard and feel like part of a community, and then they're not coming and talking to you a year later saying, "I attempted suicide." Another issue, I have two bad experiences with therapists, okay? So, I was in therapy before COVID. He was great. He retired, though. After my dad died, I decided I was gonna go try another therapist.
Mhm.
So, this is not at all to bash on the Christian-based therapy. I have faith. I went to a Christian counseling center that is the head of, the church I went to at the time. I don't go to church anymore. So I met with the director. She's the head therapist there. And I spent an hour with her and just purging all these things about how I was feeling about my dad dying and about my marriage, how it was falling apart. How do I fix my marriage? Feeling like I was the problem, you know? And then it went great and we made another appointment. So we get up to go leave. Okay. This is just a few years ago. We get up to go leave. Her door had been open the entire time. It was a late at night. So I assumed she was the only one there. So we get up to go leave. And then the door adjacent to her room was opened. Her husband walked us out. He had listened to our entire therapy session. So I felt so fucking dirty after leaving that therapy session. And it made things so much worse for me mentally. I take the ethics and values very seriously in client patient confidentiality very seriously because that can do so much damage to someone. I didn't go to therapy for months and months after that, and I got into a really dark place from that. And he heard everything. Okay, and so then my therapist wanted me to see an EMDR therapist who is specialized in EMDR. So I found one myself. This is just recently, just a couple months ago. He said, you're ready to start EMDR to process your dad's death, the flashbacks, and then maybe bring up some childhood trauma. Okay. I find this therapist. He's a military vet. He's a cop. He's pastor. He's been through all that stuff. I'm like, okay, this sounds like someone that can handle me. So I get there and I'm like, I'm just looking for supplemental EMDR therapy. I'm not looking for anything else. So I mentioned this other therapy issue that I had years ago and about how confidentiality is really important to me. He told me, "Are you sure that's correct?" Completely invalidated my experience. Said, "Are you sure about that?"
Hmm.
And then when I mentioned my dad dying, he told me there's always something to be grateful in every experience. Just be grateful. And then he started quoting Jordan Peterson. Fucking right, man. Tell you what, it's a good thing I had therapy with my therapist that night because the 45-minute drive home, I was bawling and hysterical because he caused so much damage to me and I have not even considered EMDR therapy since then. And he was trying to steal me from my therapist. He said I wasn't ready for EMDR. This is after knowing me for 30 minutes. He already had a piece of paper laying on the table for me to take home, homework. I'm like, this is not what I'm here for. I'm here for EMDR therapy. This is one reason why I'm going into it myself, because I want to be a positive part of this profession
Yeah.
and not if you caught someone, if you did that to somebody in their worst moment, like say they were in a really bad moment at that time, that could have been enough to drive someone over the edge.
Yeah, but neither of the people you just talked about should have jobs in that field.
Very, very scary to think that that goes on all the time, and I'm
Yeah.
sure some of the listeners have dealt with a lot of those experiences themselves. It's so common that it's sad.
Post office is hiring.
We need better postal workers. I'm just kidding.
And just to be clear, if someone's out there and they are, or
Please.
someone in their lives are a post person, I'm legitimately not ribbing on your job. It's just a different function. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with how important your job is, because it is. How many people know that we're talking right now?
Nobody. The last time I was talking to you, I had told a few people, didn't tell them what it was about. So a couple people know that I was going to be going on a podcast to talk about mental health, but
Hmm.
nobody knows that I'm on a podcast talking about suicide because most people don't know how deep it gets for me with this kind of stuff. I have a couple people who know some of the deep stuff, but I don't think I plan to tell anybody that I was on here. I don't want anybody to know 'cause I don't trust people.
We don't even know if you're going to listen to this episode when it comes out.
I've toyed with that idea. I feel like curiosity will get the better of me, even though I'm hoping that if I decide to listen to it, that it will make me feel better, not worse.
I hope so.
You know?
I mean, let's be honest. There's no guarantees.
There's no guarantee in life either, right? I mean,
Did you ever think about checking yourself into a hospital?
no, because I've heard of the damage that can cause for people, and especially with the facilities we have here, they've done no good for anyone that I've talked to. They've made things way worse. So I will just try to continue doing what I'm doing, therapy. I'm in a peaceful place now. It's quiet. I'm not having panic attacks because of the music from upstairs that literally triggered panic. I've had so many panic attacks over the last couple of years. Loud noise triggers it for me because I've been just dealing with screaming from partners my whole life or my parents, so loud noises bother me. Sudden noises bother me. I've had panic attacks on the expressway one time when I was fighting with my ex. That caused me to sit over on the side of the road for an hour, panicking, hyperventilating. Yeah, I'm in a peaceful place. I'm in a better peaceful place now. I take magnesium baths. They help a lot. Trying to do more. I'm trying to get back into yoga. I would love to get back into running because that's what helped me in the past. I've always told people running is the only time where I feel like I can think about my thoughts logically and with a clear head because you're focused on the physical aspect, your body's movement and suffering. You're basically just suffering yourself from running. But it's the only time that I was able to really logically think about my problems. And I see runners now running down the street, and I'm just like so jealous, but I just can't find that motivation, which is another reason why I'm trying to scale back on my antidepressant.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to do things the best way that I can. But I do have my dark days.
How many people do you have in your life that you can talk to about this stuff and it be okay?
Not when it comes to the deep, deep stuff that I feel. I have people that I know that I could talk to about it, and because I've had deep conversations with friends, but I don't know. Something just causes me to pause. Even my own therapist, he's amazing. I credit him for helping me change my life, really. But even him, it's like I feel like I have to protect people from my pain.
Mm.
Like, if something were to ever happen, I don't want anyone to feel guilt for not doing enough or liable. So, I don't know, like, I'll talk about things to an extent, but I draw a line now.
At any point, particularly of late, let's even just say 2025, have you ever thought, man, I wish I had just put the bullets in the gun and pulled it?
No, because that's not how I'd wanna go.
How do you want to go if you did it?
Water. That's the blessing and the curse because the water's my peace, but the water's also become my coping mechanism with my dark thoughts. Like, I
And
want to live on the ocean someday because it gives me such healing. I went on a solo divorcee trip to Florida last year by myself, and I just felt peace, like something's bigger than me, the ocean. But up here, there's so much pain here that it's become a dark spot for me, unfortunately. And that's why I need to get the fuck out of here.
yeah, I am hoping that happens for you.
But I'm hopeful they will. I feel like if I get into this career and I'm find my purpose in life and stop living for other people and live for a purpose, maybe that will be what I actually need to overcome my own demons.
Given what you just shared about water, feels like that's somewhere in the memoir title, is it not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the place you love, but it might be the place if you were to ever take your life. I'm not saying I have the memoir title done. I'm saying it feels like that word should be somewhere in there.
Absolutely. That's the water is my peace. It always has been. It's been my place to escape. Just here where I live now, it's become a dark place for me. And I actually
Hmm.
avoid it sometimes now. I avoid going to the beaches. It's like a habit now, it's become a habit, unfortunately. My fear is that when I'm in a very bad space mentally, struggling, overwhelmed, drowning, metaphorically drowning, maybe I'll literally drown. It scares me. It does.
So you draw a line with your therapist.
I do because I'm afraid if I'm too honest, I'll either get transferred to someone else or get hospitalized. And he's told me no. And he's like, been there before. I get it. And I know I can trust him, but I just, can you really trust people 100%?
No.
Exactly.
It,
They have their own things to worry about too. They have their own rules to worry about, their own lives to worry about, the laws, ethics. Everyone has their own stuff to worry about. I don't feel like you can 100% trust anybody. Yeah, I don't know how to fix that within myself. So then you have that fear. Well, if I can't fix myself, how am I supposed to help other people? And then it just takes you back into that loop, of not feeling good enough. So I'm figuring it out.
I give you a pill. It is colored pink and purple. If you take the pill, you go to sleep, you don't wake up, there is no pain, and nobody knows it's a suicide. What would you do with that pill?
Well, I wouldn't take it, but I wouldn't get rid of it, but I wouldn't keep it in my house. I thought about this. I would put it in a lockbox.
With the tool?
Yep, I would store it somewhere way out of my way to where I would really have to think about it because I can be an impulsive person with things I do. It'd be something I'd have to really, really think about, which is what I need with anything I'm struggling with. I just need a minute to breathe and think. So it would probably stay there forever, hopefully, but you just never know.
Maybe I should put an expiration date on it or something.
Well, I mean, pills do expire, right?
Yeah. Are there any myths or misconceptions you want to dispel?
Aside from the ones that I've heard other people talk about on here, kind of like how I talked about with my dad's death and how the movies make it look different. Mental illness is shown in a light on movies and TV to be something that it's kind of not. I mean, you could look at me and I'm smiling, like, hey, how's it going? It can be hiding behind that. And you can't judge people based off of how they look or how they're acting because sometimes it's hidden deep down inside you.
Hmm.
It can happen to any of us. Anyone you're talking to could be going through something that is extremely painful. Yeah, that's just what I would say. Don't judge a book by its cover, kind of thing.
Unless it's a memoir that I helped create, then you can.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to say, physical pain hurts, but words can kill you too.
Hmm.
Be careful how you talk to people.
Sometimes it'd be better to be a dog.
Shit, I'd be a bird so I could poop on everybody.
Nice. Well, how many dogs do you have?
I have 2. They've been my lifesavers, they really have. They are very affectionate and caring, they're like little humans. I call them my little Joe Pescis. 'Cause they're scrappy. They're scrappy. It's funny, we go for walks and people always laugh because one's always walking in front of me and one's always walking behind me like I'm part of their pack. So they know when I'm having anxiety, and they've literally some days when I just don't wanna get out of bed, which has happened a lot, they have been my reason to get out of bed, and I feel like we don't deserve them.
Yeah, man, they don't say dumb shit.
No, and their unconditional love, they don't expect anything in return but just food and love. All I wanted to do was have my own family, and I feel like I'm at the point in my life where I won't have kids. So I'm actually thinking about maybe adoption or fostering later on when I'm in my 40s and
Mm,
established. Maybe I need someone that I can love instead of looking for someone to love me. Give someone a better life than what I had and show them what love really is instead of trying to prove to other people that I am lovable. And if you don't have that, I mean, if you don't have something to live for or someone to live for, I mean, it can be kind of rough, you know?
yeah, well, more than kinda. I have one more thing I wanna ask you, and then, of course, you can add anything else you want, and that is as, someone in their late 30s
Mm,
who had, an ambition to be a photojournalist, war
yeah,
correspondent specifically, and I bet you would have been pretty damn good at it, and I'm not trying to throw fuel on fire, it's your life, you know it more than anybody, so I'm just sort of speaking things I've heard, and somebody wants a family, has wanted a family. Those are 2 really big things to reconcile.
they are.
I know you know that. And so my question, I don't know if there is an answer or you can articulate it. How do you or how are you reconciling essentially what are 2 really, really big losses? How do you grieve that or how do you deal with that?
That's where I'm currently at right now, and I think that has a lot to do with a lot of the pain I'm going through and a lot of the dark thoughts because I have avoided that my question my entire life. I've been masking it with alcohol, which, by the way, I'm 2 years sober. I've been avoiding those feelings. I've been avoiding my feelings for my whole life, and I'm just now starting to try to heal. And those are the 2 big ones for me. I don't know how to reconcile it, and it's causing a lot of grief and a lot of pain on top of the grief I'm already dealing with, trying to grieve my marriage, grieve my dad's death, grieve my loneliness, and then you throw that on top of it. Yeah, it can be a lot.
A
It's not
lot.
something you can fix. You can't go back and fix it. 20
You
years
know,
later, you can't fix it. So what do? You just try to find something else that brings you a little bit of joy and purpose in life.
and that's not always enough for some people. And not to try to candy coat it, but you don't even know like if you had that, you're a war correspondent, maybe at 27 years old you'd have been killed. And maybe that would have been okay for you. I don't know. Or maybe you know what I
I
mean?
mean, it would have saved me a lot of suffering.
You know what I think about? This is the weirdest, thing that pops into my head sometimes, but it's always it's there a lot. I mostly think about it when someone's trying to deal with, like, years of just dealing with life, and you're doing the best you can. Things are fucked up. Maybe you're drinking or drugging. You're just getting through it as best you can, and there comes a point or a period of time when you have to reconcile that and undo it, and you know what I think about? So, there was this thing I read once, and I don't know if it's true, but I read it and it was from, I think, like a legit resource where somebody fell onto a subway track or a train track and they got partially run over by the train. As far as I understood it, if you were to look at it, you'd see a train, and on the tracks, you'd see somebody, and the bottom half of their body, or perhaps 3/4 of their body, was crushed, but the top wasn't. You could talk to that person because the train kind of kept everything intact, and they could talk and they could think. They were alive, they were awake. I don't even think they were in pain, as far as I understood. But the moment the decision was made to back the train up, you can imagine. And that's the way I think about it. It's like, is that a weird, does that make any sense?
That makes complete sense, and I love that.
And there had to be a point, and I don't know if it was 10 minutes or 10 hours, where somebody, presumably the person who was trapped, decides now's the time. And they know how fucking painful it's going to be, maybe deadly. But what are you going to do?
What other option do you have?
What other option do you have?
You really don't?
I mean, you don't really, can't probably stay there forever. So
That's a mic drop, Sean.
if I had a better mic, I'd drop it. I'm afraid this one that's already partially broken is going to break, so it's not actually a
Yeah,
mic.
it's not worth it.
So what's the rest of your day like here on, I think I can tell everyone it's a Saturday. What are you going to do?
Well, I purposely chose this time of day to go on with you because initially attempted to talk last time. It was at night and I went to bed with anxiety. I didn't say what I wanted to say. I didn't say how I wanted to say it. Wasn't honest 100%, wasn't transparent. So today I chose the afternoon so that I can get out of the apartment for a while, maybe go get some shopping done, come back, get some cleaning done, and then avoid homework all night, watch the new Den of Thieves with Gerard Butler, and tomorrow, just get caught up on my homework.
Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, Chelle, and I really appreciate you talking with me. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Take care. And as I mentioned in the introduction, given that a fair amount of time has gone by, Chelle had some additional things she wanted to share, a sort of a mini update. So here it is.
Hi, Sean. It has been almost 1 year since our conversation for the podcast, and I am just now comfortable enough to have you release it, but I wanted to do this short update because a lot has happened in the last year. We had talked about how I was titrating down on my SSRI because I just felt like I wasn't able to do some of the things I wanted to do, and I felt like I needed more anxiety in my life. Well, as a result of allowing others to influence my decisions with, the voices in my ear from other people telling me that I don't need help with medication, I don't need this, I don't need that. I listened to those people, I listened to those voices, and I ended up titrating down completely off my medication, probably within 4 to 6 weeks after we spoke. And at first I felt okay, but something happened. This has been close to a year now, so I'm comfortable enough to share it. It's important that it goes in this update. I struggle to go see my father at the cemetery. He's in a beautiful cemetery by the lake, facing the lake under a beautiful pine tree. And I would go up there every few months or so. I've always had a hard time standing there for more than a minute. And then I'll go sit in my car and just stare and think and reflect, and then I'll leave. Well, Father's Day last year, I made the decision to go up there. It's about an hour drive for me up to my hometown on the lake. And I did my usual routine where I get out of my car, I go stand over his grave, say my few words to him that I love him and that I am so sorry I couldn't save him. And then I walk back to my car and I sit there for a while and then I leave. This day was different. It was getting closer to sundown. It was Father's Day weekend. There was nobody else in the cemetery. I went back into my car and I was just thinking about how I could not save my dad. And I believe being off the medication as well, I had just come off the medication a few weeks before this, was bringing up all my feelings. I didn't have that numbness or that cushion that, medication can sometimes give you. And floodgates opened for me. I don't recall tears coming out, but I struggled. So my mind went into a very dark place around this time when I was sitting in my car, and I pulled my tool off my hip. I set it in my lap, and I kept staring at it and then staring at my dad's grave, staring at it and staring at my dad's grave. I had no intention of going up there with any thoughts of that. It just came out of nowhere. And after about a half an hour of this, things just kind of progressed, and I got into a pretty dark space in my mind to the point where I told myself, well, this would be a good way to ensure that my loved ones don't find me, that nobody that I love finds me. So I had the thought in my head that I could dial 911, tell them where I was, what was going on, hang up on them, and then turn the lights off. And I sat there thinking on this for probably another half hour. And then I finally started to cry. And I holstered my tool back up into my hip where I carry to protect myself. And then I left. Went and bought a bottle of wine, and I drank a couple glasses of wine that night for the first time in 2.5 years. So after this, it was a snowball effect for me. I did speak with a friend about it, and I did, after time, spoke with my therapist about it. It took some time, but between this time and I would say late August, I was on a downward spiral, and things got really bad for me. I stopped taking care of myself. I was very stressed out with work and very stressed out with my school and all my responsibilities. And my anxiety came back full force. I don't know if it was as bad as it always was before I was on medication and I just wasn't used to it or didn't realize how bad it was because I had lived with it my entire life, or if it was just everything crashing down on me all at once. It became very debilitating. I could not find any relief whatsoever. Late August, I ended up catching a virus from a relative, but because of the stress that I was under, it became tenfold. My doctor later told me that I was under so much stress that my body literally attacked itself. So I was in and out of the ER. I was getting procedures done, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. My whole body felt like it was being attacked. And this went on for 4 months, at least 4 months, before I finally started to feel better. And during that time, I did go back on my medication. My anxiety was debilitating for many months. I could not focus with work. I had to drop out of school. I had to take a pause on my volunteer work. Basically, my whole life was put on hold, minus going to work. I was just starting to feel better when I ended up having to go into the ER on New Year's Day and have an emergency surgery. And I am just now starting to feel a sense of normalcy in my life, and I am just now getting back into things. I wanted to share this because I think it's very important that anyone who listens to this understands. Do not allow others to dictate your life and your mental health. Do what is best for you. Surround yourself with people that can support you, or at the very least, not hurt you further. I allowed people to get into my head because they don't understand where people like us are coming from with our hurt and our pain, which I'm glad they don't, because it's a special type of hell that you don't want to be a part of. Surround yourself with people who will listen to you, and at the very least, get rid of the people in your life who cause you more harm, because it can make the difference between life and death. Now, when I got sick and I was in the emergency room the first time, I did confide to one of my siblings about what had happened over Father's Day weekend. And he had asked to hold on to my tool along with my keys. And he held on to those for many months until I was able to get stabilized with my health physically and mentally. The only saving grace in this is I feel like everything happens for a reason. And I know others may not feel this way, but I feel like God allows us to go through things for a reason, or the universe, whatever it is you believe. Going through what I went through the last 6 months made me realize I do want to live. It's not that I want to die. I just don't want to be in pain anymore. And I'm not the one to give advice to people because everyone is different. Everyone's story is different. The only advice I want to give to anyone who's listening and who's in a situation like I have been in is just keep going. Keep going until you can't go anymore. Give yourself one more day, and then try to give yourself another day and another day. 1 minute at a time if you have to. That's what I say. 1 minute at a time sometimes. There is joy to be found. You just may not find it on certain days or certain weeks or certain months like I did. But I just want to say, please keep going until you cannot go anymore. One thing I didn't share in on my last conversation was there were a couple of times where I had panic attacks in my apartment. One was the first year after I left my ex, and the other one was last year, right before I got sick and had my mental breakdown. I was having anxiety attacks. There were a couple times when I had these panic attacks, and I pulled out my sketchbook and ink and pencils. I used to be big into art. So I'm going to share this with you guys. So I did a sketch, and it's got a woman's face, and her hair is up in a bun, and it has a bunch of writing inside of her face, which are words that my ex used to scream to me during all of our fights. And this happened in the midst of a panic attack. I didn't even know what I was doing, okay? So I wrote all these words, and I'm just going to read them off to you, some of them. I'm sick of your games, go to hell. Shut up. Fuck you. Cunt. Bitch. You're jealous. Grow up. You're weak. Act like a fucking wife. And then below that, where my mouth is, where the mouth is, it says all the things that I feel. Walking on eggshells, nightmares, anger, fear, scared, afraid, guilty, what happened to you, overwhelmed, sad, drowning, and lost. And so what I also included in here was a quote that I had read online shortly after I left my marriage. He called me names when he was angry, but he did not hit me. He would smash things into the walls, but he did not hit me. He would scream inches from my face, but he did not hit me. He made me feel like ending my life was the only way out, but at least he didn't hit me. And then I have another quote I would like to read from another sketch I did. It's a man with his fingers on each side of a woman's mouth. Her eyes are closed. He's looking down on her. Got his fingers on each side of her mouth to make her smile. And he's telling her it's all in your head. And she's saying, I'm fine. And then I also put this, did you know that we can live 40 days without food, and we can live 3 days without water? and we can actually live 8 minutes without air, but only 1 second without hope. I just feel like this would resonate with a lot of people. The loneliness that you can feel when you're all alone, and when you feel like your voice has been silenced out of fear, and when you watch somebody that you love, that you didn't get a chance to rebuild a close relationship with as an adult, watch them pass away in a very unfair and cruel way, and then to feel like you're walking alone through all of that. I feel like for a lot of us, our experiences shape us and get us into this point mentally. I feel like some of us are born with these chemicals in our brain. For many of us, it's trauma, it's abuse, it's grief, it's traumatic experiences that you can't get out of your head. This may sound cliche, but the only way to get through these things is to face them and to ask for help, and then to take that pain that you've been through and use that to help others. And I feel like that's where true healing will be found. I feel like that's what's going to heal me.
As always, thanks so much for listening and all of your support. Special thanks to Chelle on the shore. Thanks, Chelle. If you are a suicide attempt survivor or ideator and you'd like to talk, I'd love to talk with you. Please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com. Remember to check our weekly poll on Spotify. And if you would be so kind, leave us a 5-star rating on Apple. Only, of course, if you think we are worthy of 5 stars. Either way, thanks for listening. And that is all for this week's episode. Stay strong. Do the best you can. I'll talk to you soon.